Good morning. My name is the Reverend Leonetta Bugleisi, and I have been honored to serve the Universalist Unitarian Church of Farmington for over 7 years. Just 2 days ago, we acknowledged September 11th. 19 years ago, this country lived through a very tragic time together. We lost almost 3,000 Americans. Now we live through this COVID challenge and crisis together. We've lost many lives. We've been challenged in new ways of living. But today we choose joy. We choose to cultivate joy, and we choose to acknowledge the amazing energies that we have together to change our lives and other lives around us. N. Scott Momaday says, "We are who we imagine ourselves to be. Our very existence consists in our imaginations of ourselves. Our best destiny is to imagine at least completely who and what that we are. The greatest tragedy that can befall us is to go unimagined. Today, we go imagined." Welcome to our service.
Somebody asked, "Why do you do these things?" She said, "This is what I came here for." She said, "Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you want. Do all you can. Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you want. Do all you can. This is a gift they gave to us to share wherever we go. Be the change you wish to see in this world. Now I understand what they wanted us to know. Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you want. Do all you can. Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you want. Do all you can. Do all you can. Do all you can.
Find a comfortable position and close your eyes as the words of Melissa Dormé move us to take a deep breath and send that breath all the way down to the middle of our stomach. Once more now, breathe in and out and allow that breath to send a calm relaxation all the way from your breath down into your torso and your stomach and all the way down your legs and to your toes. And when you exhale, release any thoughts or stress you have stored anywhere in your body. Now imagine walking to a beautiful place where the sun shines warm. You are walking barefoot in the thick, long grasses. Feels like a cozy bed beneath your feet. It tickles your ankles as you slowly stroll through it. And as the sunshine brightly wraps itself all around you, you feel like it is a comforting big hug. It warms your skin, kisses your forehead, and makes your skin smell like sunshine and happiness. As you move forward, you come upon a fountain and you hear splashing sounds. And you relax and listen to the waves. The splashing sounds seem to be coming from the mermaid's tail. A mermaid in a fountain, and her tail wrapped around the pole to hold her in place. The mermaid sits in a sunny place, riding on a sliver of a moon ride. You take in a deep breath and allow the sound of her laughter and her playfulness into every place in your body. It makes you feel so good, and it brings a smile to your face. Being here, relaxing with her, with no worries, reminds you that whatever is going on in your life, you can close your eyes and tune into inner happiness, just like the mermaid splashing in the fountain. Inside us, there's a connection to true joy. It's there for us anytime we choose to tune in. That joy is really part of who we are. It's always at peace, and it's sure to tune your inner body in as you touch the playfulness and joyfulness that you have within you. Remember the mermaids and how they laugh and play. Remember that no matter what goes on in life, you can come into that inner space and feel the happiness and inner peace. Just like the pets that you watch find their peacefulness and curiosity and joy, you too can touch your curiosity, peacefulness, and joy. Say goodbye to the mermaids and notice how she smiles and holds her beautiful starfish in her mirror, knowing that deep within her resides joy. Open your eyes when you are ready. Give your body a nice stretch and let this happiness stay with you.
Every morning
As we begin to look together at the topic of joy, I want to relax each of you. We don't expect that after hearing this message that we will all be instantaneously joyful. I remember years ago, a friend of mine wanted me to be happy. That was the goal, for me to be happy. And I yelled back, I don't want to be happy. I don't want to be joyful all the time. There's just too much pressure in being happy and joyful. I just want moments of contentment. Some may say that you have to be careful what you ask for because that's what you'll get. And now I do have many moments of contentment within my joy. I believe that I was rebelling against what was mindfulness, or mindlessness, I should say, an inauthentic joy. You know, the image of a person walking around with that silly grin. Sometimes you see newscasters just smiling as they're reporting the hurricanes and such. So I continue to opt for contentment. Whether the goal is to be joyful or content today, I'd like to share some approaches that can demonstrate that it's within our choice and power to be either one. Cultivating joy is available to each of us, and to me it's a matter of some basic approaches of perspective, definition, and balance. The story of the farmer illustrates how happiness and joy could be a matter of choice. A very old Chinese Taoist story describes a farmer in a poor country village, and he was considered very well to do. He owned a horse he used for plowing and for transportation. One day his horse ran away. All the neighbors explained how terrible this was, but the farmer just said, maybe, maybe not. A few days later, the horse returned and brought 2 wild horses with it. The neighbors all rejoiced in his good fortune, but the farmer just said, maybe, maybe not. The next day, the farmer's son tried to ride one of the wild horses, and the horse threw him and broke his leg, and the neighbors all offered their sympathy for his misfortune. But the farmer again said, maybe, maybe not. The next week, conscription officers came to the village to take the young men to the army, but they rejected the farmer's son because of his broken leg. When the neighbors told him how lucky he was, the farmer replied, maybe, maybe not. The meaning that any event just depends on one frame in which we perceive it comes from this. When we change the frame, we can change the meaning. Having 2 wild horses is a good thing until it is seen in the context of the son's broken leg. But then the broken leg becomes actually a gift because the young man is not taken to war. This is called reframing, and many of you do it continually. All of us have had to do it during this COVID crisis. So just what do you need to make your job of cultivating joy easier? Will you cultivate joy when your vacation starts, or when you win the lottery, or when there's a vaccine for the COVID? Each of you defines what you want differently. Most of you have all your needs met. You have shelter, you have food. Many of us have been impacted on our jobs, but most of us are adapting and making way. However, the shrouds of this discontent that have come with the COVID have gotten through to most of us. How do we live a peaceful, productive life in spite of having to adapt? Tim Beck, an author writing about depression, asserts that his common sense of working with those people that have symptoms of loneliness, low self-esteem, and expect the worst possible results from their actions actually have a tendency that started in the 60s, that was treating depression through a Freudian analyst technique, or pushing the patient to gain some insight about depression. As anger turned upon themselves, rather than expressing it, resulting in the depression getting worse. The treatment groups of expressing the anger did not always work. The patients would continue to unravel and with little relief. Tim Beck came to realize that that perspective of the depressive was of the complete pessimist, thinking awful things about themselves and the future. And so let's apply this to COVID. What do we think is going to happen as the seasons change? Are we going to be able to adapt and do different kinds of activities for the fall that we look forward to? Or are we seeing this as just another drudgery of having to Zoom everything instead of doing it in person? Sometimes those thoughts, those negative thoughts, or framing things as impossible and depleted of joy are exactly what happens. The assumption is that individual techniques are not valid and that all emotional disturbances arise from the forces outside one's grasp. The value can be common sense based. According to Alfred North Whitehead, science is rooted in common sense thought. So that datum from which it starts to which it will occur follows our train of thought, whether it be positive or negative. You can polish up common sense, you may contradict it in detail, you may surprise it, but ultimately our whole task is to satisfy common sense. And so the common sense of it would be to cultivate or to work joy. So the Transcendentalists of the 1840s knew this. They knew that they needed to transcend the ritualized activities of how spirituality had become intellectualized, if you will, and only within buildings. And so they transcended that way of thought to extend to all kinds of mysticism and experiences of the senses and smelling and hearing and tasting and knowing that the whole soul could come alive if we transcended our previous way of thinking. Now, in order to do that, we have to accept ourselves and our entire souls, if you will, and all the different ramifications of emotions that move through our system on a daily basis. And so some of you might be familiar with the movie Inside Out. The little girl Riley in the movie Inside Out has to contend with her life as a 10-year-old as her parents move her. And she has all kinds of feelings. She has sadness and anger and disgust and joy, and she has to allow these feelings to all have spaces within her system and to be felt at the appropriate time. And so it isn't just joy. There are times that it's appropriate to be disgusted. There's times it's appropriate to be sad. There's times that Riley was even afraid. And aren't each of us going through that during these COVID times? We have so many different feelings at play. But hopefully we come back to having the goal of cultivating joy. This common sense approach as we live in the present. So we reflect on today, for example, opening Sunday, September 13th. This afternoon, you're all going to be invited to drive by the church and maybe drop off a contribution to help the CARES group that helps to feed the people in Farmington that need extra food. And you're also going to get a bag filled with joy to remind you of the community that you're a part of. And you can wave to the minister, and you can wave to our religious education coordinator and to different members of the membership committee that are hosting this. And so we look forward to seeing you, because we are cultivating joy in new ways as we live in the present. C.G. Jung, famous psychiatrist, wrote in The Undiscovered Self that the individual is increasingly deprived of the moral decision as to how one should live their own life, and instead is ruled, fed, clothed, and educated as a social unit, accommodated in the appropriate housing unit, amused in accordance with the standards that give pleasure and satisfaction to the masses. COVID has tested us. Yes, we are social animals, but we have discovered amazing, amazing talents to keep ourselves busy and interested. And how do we do that? We do that by being creative and open. And so that everything that is going to make us happy isn't going to come through on our personal computers or on our phones. Sometimes what's going to make us happy is standing in the yard and smelling the scents of the seasons. And they may change from spearmint, and they may move to the moist ground after a long rain. Isn't it amazing that each one of us are participating in evolution? We're participating in natural selection. Natural selection stresses survival in a hostile environment. How many of you believe that we've been living in a hostile environment? Raise your hand. I'm raising mine. This is where we are, but these times have been repeated and move all the way back to prehistoric evolution. We just need to adapt. And so sometimes to adapt, the arts move into action. And arts take brain power, physical effort, time, sometimes precious resources. And COVID has given us all of that. We have brain power moving with physical effort, we have the time, and we have the resources. All we have to do is use them in new and exciting ways, or sometimes old ways, like doing jigsaw puzzles. Evolution by natural selection is a severe accountant in the ways that it shows potential adaptations in terms of cost and benefits. And so this was the general issue during Darwinian's theory being explained. There's a classic case, and it's the peacock's tail. Both Darwin and his early critics well understood some initial reluctance by otherwise sympathetic artists to the origin, scientists are artists, aren't they? Only in a different way. Origin of species. So Darwin failed to explain and couldn't figure out the natural excesses, for example, the plumages and the songs of birds. He had this awareness that caused him some mental difficulties that he expressed in Asa Gray's letters and communication. Darwin wrote to Gray, "The thought of the eye in the bird made me cold all over." And especially he got very upset about the sight of a feather in a peacock's tail. Whenever I gaze on it, he said it made him sick. It made him sick because he couldn't understand why there needed to be such excess for the peacock. Why did he have to have such a dramatic display of plumage? Couldn't he have one or two of those beautiful feathers? Why a whole array? Of course, we know the reasons of attracting mates, etc. But again, Darwin questioned the excess. So I have to say that that is a point that when we look at COVID, I would say I wouldn't question any excess. Sometimes you need to be like the peacock. You need to operate in excess. You need to have not 2 plumes. You need to have not just 2 ice creams in a week. You might need to have an ice cream every day. You might need to not just make one mask when you're on a excited time that you want to make a lot of masks for your friends, you might have to make 50 masks. You might have to sleep more. You might have to cultivate joy to a point that other people think, what is that person doing? Are they actually producing anything, setting up their children's desk at home and making sure every nano and detail is put into place? Sometimes cultivating joy will mean moving into excess. And so this is a time that I would like to share with you to think about, what does it mean to have the expression of all of the feelings of our friends from inside out, just like Riley, and to be accepting of all those feelings and know that joy is one of them, and not to judge ourselves for what we go through. What does it mean to have an opening Sunday when we do a drive-by? We've never done that before, because we're participating, aren't we, in natural selection, and we're adapting. What does it mean to be like the peacock? And sometimes having to be showy and outrageously amazing so that we can cultivate joy in our life and adapt and change as we need to during these times. So one of my favorite sayings, many of you have heard, I don't know if you all remember, is Charles Darwin, I believe, if he were in the here and now, would say, consider your actions, would I be proud? Consider your actions, would Charles Darwin be proud? Cultivate joy, not just today, but as many days as you possibly can. Again, call the people in your new directory, and also wave and greet people as you see them and drive by this afternoon. We look forward to times that we can have different services out in the garden, and we have different kinds of gatherings and small groups as we will this afternoon. May each of you find your space to be self-accepting and compassionate to yourself as you cultivate joy. Namaste.
Drive in, we'll do the best we can. Drive in, bring your whole delightful clan. Come by slow and easy and we'll wave you by the hand. Drive on in, we'll treat you decent, Unitarian. Come in, drive in, we'll do the best we can. Drive in with your whole delightful clan. Drive by slow and easy and we'll wave you by the hand. Come on in, we'll treat you decent, Unitarian.